Story No. 1. The Reflection. Sarah moved into her grandmother's old Victorian house after the funeral. The place was a time capsule, floral wallpaper, antique furniture, and an ornate full-length mirror in the master bedroom that seemed to draw her attention. The first night, she noticed something odd. Her reflection in that mirror appeared to move a fraction of a second slower than she did. She convinced herself it was exhaustion from the move. Days passed, and the delay grew more pronounced. By the end of the week, her reflection was moving independently. It would smile when Sarah frowned. It would wave when Sarah stood still. At night, Sarah would wake to find her reflection standing at the mirror, staring back at her from across the dark room, even though Sarah herself was lying in bed. She tried covering the mirror with sheets, but every morning, the sheets would be neatly folded on the floor. She tried moving it to the basement, but it would reappear in her bedroom by nightfall, as if it had never been moved. One evening, Sarah decided to confront whatever haunted the mirror. She stood before it and demanded to know what it wanted. Her reflection smiled, a cold, cruel smile Sarah had never made in her life. Then it spoke, though Sarah's lips remained closed. "I've been waiting so long," the reflection whispered. "Your grandmother kept me trapped for 60 years. But she's gone now, and you're not strong enough to keep me here." The reflection reached forward, its hand pressing against the glass from the inside. The mirror rippled like water. Sarah tried to run, but her legs wouldn't obey. She watched in horror as the reflection's hand emerged from the mirror, then an arm, then a shoulder. It pulled itself out completely, a perfect copy of Sarah, but with eyes that were entirely black. The doppelganger grabbed Sarah by the wrists and pulled with inhuman strength. Sarah screamed as she was dragged toward the mirror's surface, which opened like a hungry mouth. Their positions reversed in an instant. Sarah found herself trapped inside the mirror, pounding against the glass, screaming silently. Her doppelganger smoothed down its hair, practicing Sarah's expressions in the reflection. "Don't worry," it said, its voice now perfect. "I'll take good care of your life." From inside the mirror, Sarah watched helplessly as the thing wearing her face walked out of the room, turning off the light. In the darkness, Sarah could feel others around her in the mirror, dozens of trapped souls, all previous victims, all waiting for someone strong enough to defeat their captor. But no one ever came. Story No. 2. The Passenger. Jake was driving home from his night shift at the hospital when he saw the hitchhiker on Route 49. It was 3 a.m., pouring rain, and the figure stood illuminated in his headlights, a young woman in a white dress, thumb out, completely soaked. Against his better judgment, Jake pulled over. She climbed in without a word, dripping water onto his seat. He caught a glimpse of her face in the rearview mirror, pale, expressionless, eyes fixed straight ahead. "Where are you headed?" Jake asked. "Pinewood Cemetery," she replied in a flat monotone. Jake's blood went cold. That's a cemetery. Do you mean Pinewood Road?" "Pinewood Cemetery," she repeated. The drive was tense and silent, except for the rhythmic thump of windshield wipers. Jake kept glancing at the rearview mirror. Each time, the woman looked paler, her dress somehow drier but torn, with dark stains spreading across the fabric. When they passed the old bridge at Miller's Crossing, she suddenly spoke again. "This is where I died." "What?" Jake's hands tightened on the wheel. 17 years ago tonight. My boyfriend was driving. We were fighting. He wasn't watching the road. We went over the bridge. Her voice remained eerily calm. He survived. I didn't. Jake's heart pounded. He wanted to stop the car, to tell her to get out, but something kept his foot on the accelerator. In the mirror, her reflection was changing. Her hair was matted with blood now, her neck bent at an impossible angle. "Every year on this night, I try to get home," she continued. "But I never make it, because every driver realizes what I am, and they crash." "I'm not going to crash," Jake said, his voice shaking. She finally turned to look directly at him, and he made the mistake of meeting her eyes in the mirror. They were empty sockets, bleeding darkness. "Yes," she whispered. "You will." Jake's hands froze on the wheel. His body was no longer his own. He felt his arms turning, felt the car veering toward the bridge railing. He tried to scream, to fight, but he was a passenger in his own body. The last thing Jake heard before the car plunged over the bridge was her voice, sad and resigned. "Now you'll understand. Now you'll spend forever trying to get home too." Story No. 3. The Baby Monitor. When Emma and David brought their newborn daughter home, they installed a state-of-the-art baby monitor with night vision and two-way audio. The first few nights were normal, typical newborn crying, feeding, sleeping. Then Emma started noticing something on the monitor's video feed. In the corner of the nursery, just barely visible in the green-tinted night vision, a shadow seemed to watch over the crib. She mentioned it to David, who dismissed it as pareidolia, the mind finding patterns where none exist. But the shadow grew more distinct each night. By the end of the week, Emma could make out a figure, tall, thin, standing motionless in the corner. It never appeared when they entered the room, only on the monitor. One night, Emma watched in horror as the figure moved. It glided slowly toward the crib, its movement jerky and wrong, like a stuttering video. Emma ran to the nursery, but when she burst through the door, the room was empty except for her sleeping baby. She started keeping the monitor on all night, watching obsessively. The figure appeared every night at 2:47 am exactly. It would stand over the crib for precisely 13 minutes, then retreat to its corner and vanish. David thought Emma was suffering from postpartum anxiety and arranged for her to see a therapist. But Emma knew what she saw. She set up her phone to record the monitor's screen. The footage was chilling. The figure was clearly visible, and in one frame where it looked directly at the camera, Emma could see its face, a woman with hollow eyes and an expression of infinite sadness. But the most disturbing part came at the end of the recording. The figure leaned down toward the baby and whispered something. Emma enhanced the audio. The voice was barely audible. Crackling with static, she was supposed to be mine. Emma researched the house's history and discovered that 15 years ago, a woman named Margaret Ashford had lived there. She was 8 months pregnant when her husband murdered her in the nursery, the same room where Emma's daughter now slept. The baby had died with her. Now, Emma watches the monitor every night, unable to sleep, unable to look away. Because 2 nights ago, something changed. The figure didn't retreat to the corner. It stayed by the crib until morning, and when Emma checked on her daughter, the baby was sleeping peacefully. But her room was ice cold, and there were fingerprints on the crib rail. Fingerprints too large to be Emma's. Fingerprints that weren't there before. Last night, Emma heard a lullaby coming through the monitor's speaker, a woman's voice, singing softly. David still doesn't believe her. But Emma knows the truth. Margaret isn't just watching anymore. She's waiting,